Good evening, you're watching AnewZ. I'm Katie Wilson. Here are the headlines. US President Donald Trump says he will impose a 30% tariff on the EU. The humanitarian situation in Gaza remains tense as the ceasefire remains elusive. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev receives Syrian Transitional President al-Sharaa in Baku. The United States is heading for a major clash with two of its key trading partners. President Trump has announced sweeping new tariffs on imports from the European Union and other allies, triggering warnings of retaliation and fears of a trade war.
Us, and we do it to them.
US President Donald Trump is escalating global trade tensions, announcing 30% tariffs on all goods imported from the European Union and Mexico, starting on August the 1st. In a letter posted to his Truth Social account, Trump blamed what he called unfair trade deficits with the EU and accused Mexico of failing to stop the flow of fentanyl into the US. He described the trade imbalance as a national security threat and said that the relationship between the countries had been far from reciprocal. The EU, which had been pushing for a comprehensive trade agreement, responded with dismay. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen warned of proportionate countermeasures if the tariffs went ahead. In a post on X, she said, "A 30% tariffs on EU exports would hurt businesses, consumers and patients on both sides of the Atlantic." She added that the EU will continue working towards an agreement by August the 1st, but at the same time that it will be ready to safeguard EU interests on the basis of proportionate countermeasures. Analysts say that the move could backfire.
I do not believe that this was the market consensus, that Trump would escalate to this level. The EU really has no other choice. If there is no deal by August 1st, which I think is less likely now, then we're in a trade war, and we will have to see where it ends.
The tariffs could hit a wide range of goods, from French cheese and Italian leather to German electronics and Spanish pharmaceuticals. Mexico's economy ministry says it's still negotiating to avoid the tariffs. As the August deadline looms, hopes for a deal are now fading. The EU has vowed unity, but markets are bracing for impact.
President Trump says a new agreement is in place between the US, NATO and Ukraine over the supply of American weapons. Speaking to NBC News, he claimed NATO will now cover the full cost of US arms, which will then be routed to Ukraine through the alliance. He said the deal was finalised at the NATO summit in the Netherlands this June. In January, NATO's Secretary-General Mark Rutte had proposed that European allies purchase US weapons for Ukraine, a concept that now appears to be moving forward. Russia has launched a fresh wave of drone and missile strikes across Ukraine, this time targeting the country's western regions, far from the front lines. At least 2 people have been killed in Chernivtsi, near the Romanian border, and dozens of buildings have been damaged in Lviv.
The city of Lviv is among the hardest hit, with explosions reported there and in several other regions, according to Ukraine's Deputy Foreign Minister. In Lviv, near the border with Poland, 46 homes, a university building, the city's courts, and about 20 small and medium-sized businesses were damaged in the attack, the city's mayor said.
In the bomb shelter, we could hear explosions and drones flying above us, and we saw the destructions on our street. We thought it was somewhere near our street. Then we got a phone call from neighbors who wanted to check on us. And when we returned, we saw the destructions.
In the eastern city of Kharkiv, Russian missiles struck a defunct enterprise and several warehouses, according to the mayor.
Windows and doors were blown out, curtains fell, TV set was thrown through the air. The apartment is covered in glass shards. It is horrible. I want to clean the apartment. My brother came. We will clean everything together. But I do not know how I will sleep during the night. There is no window.
With little sign of respite, Western Ukraine, once seen as a safer region, is now increasingly under fire.
Well, joining us now from Lviv in Ukraine is Rudolf Mihovich, Chief Executive of Christian Medical Association. Thank you for being with us. So, firstly, how is the atmosphere in Lviv where you are now?
Yeah, thank you so much for talking about Ukraine. And this night was one of the most loudest since the beginning of war in Lviv. In less, I would say, year, Russia couldn't target Lviv and west of Ukraine very much. I think they saving rockets for other targets, or they don't have rockets. We don't know the real reasons, but we see that with increasing numbers of drones, they were threatening to Lutsk, to Kyiv. Right now, they're targeting a lot of cities. So, but I don't think that their targets are very much military subject. It's a big goal that they're trying to achieve. It just make life in Ukraine impossible. So business would leave or stop the activities. People are more afraid and ready to give up in any price.
So what do you make of these latest developments that Trump has struck a deal to send weapons to Ukraine via NATO?
You heard from our president that we are ready to accept and work in any deal. Buying by U.S., buying from Ukrainian budget to U.S. military companies, any protection, any way of helping to Ukraine, or actually it's not a helping when Ukraine buy from U.S. We need those rockets. Patriots are very effective. We need long-range rockets, ATACMS, to hit Russians' military warehouse. The big difference between Ukrainian strikes of Russia land or occupied territories, we are targeting as much as it possible military subject. You have never heard that Ukraine bombed Russians' civilian buildings, or they had many explosions in cities, but you constantly can hear about and see it in Ukrainian cities, Kyiv, Lviv, Lutsk, and other. So we believe that this help from US, or even a possibility to buy from American military companies, will really help Ukraine. But a big question, will Europe allocate a bigger budget than in previous time?
So I'd like to turn our attention to Moscow, and there are reports that North Korea is dispatching more troops to fight for Moscow. How concerned are you about this? What could the impact of that potentially be?
So if in the beginning of North Korean involvement, the society, Ukrainian society, were reacting more with joke, like this is pretty primitive and not educated soldier for a new reality war. But actually there were a key reason why Kursk operation from Russia was successful. They just sent thousands and thousands of troops. With time, they've been able to educate. So I think the world still doesn't understand how dangerous it is to involve North Korea to this war. And if they're going to involve on occupied territories, on Donetsk, Luhansk, Kharkiv, Sumsky region, it will create a big problem for us. It's not a joke. It's not anymore a stupid soldier that just running and dying. They're educating, and they give this knowledge to North Korea, and it's going to be danger for South Korea too, and in Asia Pacific region. So what we're thinking in the beginning, it's not a big threat. It's really impacting on geopolitical world, and I think that it's going to be a big problem.
Thank you very much for your insights, Rudolf. It's been great to chat to you.
Thank you.
Now, hopes for a Gaza ceasefire are rapidly fading as talks between Israel and Hamas in Qatar appear close to collapse. Negotiations have stalled, with Palestinian officials accusing Israel of using Prime Minister Netanyahu's US visit to delay progress. They claim the Israeli delegation in Doha lacked authority to make meaningful decisions on key issues like troop withdrawal and aid delivery. Netanyahu, however, maintained a positive tone before leaving Washington, saying a deal could be finalized within days.
have a choice. Where do you live?
The World Food Programme is sounding the alarm over an unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza. With food stocks ready but blocked at the border, aid officials say access, not supply, is the critical challenge. Their message is clear: without a ceasefire, the situation could spiral out of control.
The World Food Programme says Gaza is on the brink of mass famine, with 1 in 3 people going days without eating. Briefing reporters in New York, Deputy Executive Director Carl Scow painted a dire picture following his recent visit to the Strip. According to him, over 500,000 people already facing starvation. Malnutrition, he warned, is surging rapidly.
We had a formal IPC report a few weeks ago already, pointing to the entire population being acutely food insecure and 500,000 people in starvation. And since then, certainly, it hasn't gotten better. If anything, it's much worse now. Malnutrition is surging. You might have seen the numbers from UNICEF, 90,000 children now in urgent need of treatment for malnutrition.
Scow described a population in constant flight, with families forced to relocate 20 to 30 times, carrying less each time and losing the ability to survive. He stressed that the World Food Programme has enough food at Gaza's borders to feed the entire population for 2 months, but that access remains severely limited. Scow detailed long delays at checkpoints, fuel shortages, damaged armoured vehicles, and broken communications, leaving teams stranded for hours.
The operating environment also for our teams is just impossible. Some 85% now of the territory, there is active military operations. Our teams get stuck in waiting for clearances and at checkpoints, often spending between 15 to 20 hours straight in their armed vehicles, trying to escort our convoys. There's not enough fuel. There is not enough spare parts to our vehicles. Most of the windows in our armored vehicles have been damaged, and we don't have basic communication. Radio antennas from our cars have been ripped off.
The World Food Programme official said WFP is in contact with Israeli authorities, and though some agreements have been reached, implementation is falling short. The agency is again urging for an immediate ceasefire and secure humanitarian access before the crisis escalates even further.
Iran says it will continue working with the UN's nuclear watchdog, but under tighter restrictions. The country's foreign minister says inspections at nuclear sites pose both security and safety concerns. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency will continue, but under new conditions. A recently passed law now requires any future inspections to be cleared by Iran's top security body. Araghchi cited safety concerns for IAEA inspectors, pointing to radioactive risks and unexploded munitions at damaged nuclear sites. Investigators under India's Civil Aviation Ministry have released a preliminary report which reveals cockpit confusion about the plane's fuel switch moments before the fatal Air India crash last month.
A preliminary report by Indian aviation accident investigators reveals cockpit confusion moments before the fatal Air India crash that killed 260 people in Ahmedabad last month. The report indicates that the plane's engine fuel switch is shifted from run to cutoff within seconds of each other, starving both engines of fuel. The agency leading the probe, which operates under India's Civil Aviation Ministry, is investigating what has become the world's deadliest aviation disaster in a decade. Investigators are focusing on the movement of the engine fuel control switches, based on analysis of the Boeing 787's flight and voice data recorders, as well as a simulation by Boeing of the aircraft's final moments. In the moments before the crash, one pilot can be heard on the cockpit voice recorder asking the other why he had cut off the fuel. The second pilot responded that he had not done so, according to the report. CCTV footage shows that almost immediately after takeoff, a backup power source known as a ram air turbine deployed, an indication that the engines had lost power. The report suggests neither Boeing nor engine maker GE bear responsibility for the crash. Air India acknowledged the findings in a statement, saying it is cooperating fully with Indian authorities, but declined to comment further.
Now, the Syrian president's visit to Azerbaijan highlights the importance of bilateral ties between the two countries, which stretch back decades. So, what are the prospects for cooperation between Baku and Damascus?
Azerbaijan is strengthening ties with Syria as part of its broader Middle East strategy. The two countries are exploring new avenues of cooperation, including post-war reconstruction, energy exports, and infrastructure development. The president of Azerbaijan and Syria's transitional president last met during a forum in Antalya. Azerbaijan has been one of the countries to openly support Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Under President Ilham Aliyev's directive, a high-level Azerbaijani delegation, led by Deputy Prime Minister Samir Sharifov and officials from the Foreign Ministry, visited Syria to assess how Azerbaijan could assist in its rebuilding efforts. Azerbaijan, having gained unique reconstruction experience after the Second Karabakh War, sees potential in sharing that expertise with Syria. But beyond reconstruction, energy cooperation is emerging as a major pillar in Azerbaijan-Syria relations. Talks are underway to export 1 billion cubic meters of Azerbaijani natural gas to Syria via Turkey. If the pipeline connecting Syria and Jordan is also rebuilt, Azerbaijani gas could reach markets as far as Egypt, enhancing Baku's role as a regional energy provider. Azerbaijan currently exports gas to 12 countries, mainly in Europe. The addition of Syria would bring that number to 13 and mark a significant entry into the Arab Middle East energy market. Meanwhile, electricity is another emerging area. Azerbaijan also sees growing potential to export electricity to Middle Eastern countries. Historically, relations between Azerbaijan and Syria were friendly, with the exception of the latter years of the Assad rule. Today, both sides appear ready to reset and reimagine their ties, guided by mutual interests and new strategic realities. This developing partnership reflects not only Azerbaijan's evolving foreign policy, but also its ambition to become a key player in Middle Eastern energy and reconstruction efforts.
Well, earlier we had a chance to discuss the visit of President al-Sharaa with Onur Erim, President of Dragoman Strategies. Here is what he had to say.
And of course, Azerbaijan being one of the greatest nations in the region and one of the most powerful nations in the region, it is imperative that the leader of today, the Syria, Mr. President al-Sharaa, is actually trying to make more and more tighter relationship with not just the very near neighbors, but also the regional neighbors. Of course, Azerbaijan is probably should have been and seems to be now his first stop in regional talks, and it's important that Syria and al-Sharaa receives the support. And not just economically, but also politically, the support of Azerbaijan as well. This is utmost importance for regional cooperation.
Azerbaijan's press council is pushing back against claims from the Russian Union of Journalists, calling for greater scrutiny of how media is used in international influence campaigns. The council argues this case goes beyond journalism and highlights broader concerns over national security and information integrity.
In a strongly worded appeal to the international community, the Press Council of the Republic of Azerbaijan has condemned what it describes as Russia's increasing weaponization of mass media to destabilize sovereign nations. The statement responds directly to an open letter from the Russian Union of Journalists, which protested the arrest of Sputnik Azerbaijan's senior staff. The council says the Russian letter misrepresents facts to sway global opinion. It states that the activities of Sputnik Azerbaijan's head, Igor Kartavik, and editor-in-chief Yevgeny Belousov were unrelated to journalism, alleging ties to Russia's Federal Security Service, FSB. The detentions, it adds, were lawful and based on national security concerns. To provide further context, the appeal highlights the background of Sputnik's former head in Azerbaijan, Vitaly Denisov, a known career officer of Russian intelligence. Denisov, who also operated Sputnik offices in South Ossetia and Moldova, is alleged to have led disinformation and propaganda campaigns that advanced Kremlin interests under the cover of journalism. His activities led to his expulsion from both Azerbaijan and Moldova. The Council cites reports from bodies like the Council of Europe and EUV's Disinfo, describing Sputnik as a key part of Russia's disinformation strategy. It notes that Sputnik has already been banned or blocked in 32 countries, including all 27 EU members, as well as Ukraine, the UK, Switzerland, Canada, and Australia. The appeal criticizes the Russian Union of Journalists for ignoring press repression at home while defending individuals accused of espionage abroad. The statement underscores that over 50 journalists have been killed in Russia since 1992, many under suspicious circumstances, and at least 26 have been detained between 2019 and 2024. Reports by international human rights organizations regularly highlight a 60 to 70% decline in independent journalism in Russia over recent years, with the environment for free expression worsening sharply since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. High-profile murders of journalists such as Yuri Shchekochikhin, Anna Politkovskaya, Pavel Sheremet, and Paul Klebnikov remain unsolved, often due to their political sensitivity. Meanwhile, media censorship in Russia has intensified, and journalists expressing dissent are routinely silenced or arrested. In conclusion, the Azerbaijani Press Council calls on international journalism and human rights organizations to recognize and reject the manipulation of media for political ends. They urge these bodies to scrutinize the ties between institutions like the Russian Union of Journalists and state intelligence services, and to stand firmly against the use of journalism as a weapon in hybrid warfare.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the country has turned a sorrowful page in its history following the disarmament of PKK fighters. He called the moment a new day for the nation. But on the streets of Istanbul, there's both hope and skepticism.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan says that a new era has begun as the Kurdistan Workers' Party, also known as the PKK, started the process to disarm after a 4-decade armed conflict that killed more than 40,000 people.
The scourge of terror finally started the process of its ending. Turkey has started to close a long, sorrowful, tearful page.
At a party event in Ankara, Erdogan welcomed the handover of weapons by 30 PKK fighters in northern Iraq. He called it a turning point in the country's decade-long battle against the outlawed group.
Let's not forget, today is a new day. A new page is opened in history today.
But on the streets of Istanbul, views were mixed. Some welcomed the moment.
It is very good news. Since the 80s, all the mothers had been crying. After today, all we want is unity and friendship. With the help of the God, in Turkey, we will be all united.
But others expressed deep mistrust.
I'm not sure whether there is anything to be hopeful for. They may be coming together to release the weapons, but somewhere else they might be gathering again. I do not trust them at all.
The PKK says it is voluntarily destroying its weapons.
For the success of the practice of the peace and democratic society process, and as a step of goodwill and determination, we are destroying our weapons with free will.
The process is expected to take several months, and while many hope it signals the end of the conflict, few are under any illusion that the path ahead will be easy.
Well, joining us to unpack this is Hamdi Rafayi, Government Relations Executive Director for MOS Strategies from Washington, DC. Thank you for being with us. Now, what is your assessment of the dissolution of the PKK? Can we really say the PKK is fully dissolved?
Certainly, we would welcome the PKK's dissolution. However, the PKK has a history of operating under many different aliases, acronyms, the SDF, the YPG, et cetera, et cetera. So while it is nice to see that they are voluntarily destroying light arms, we don't know what's happening with their heavy equipment, and we don't know if they're reorganizing. Importantly, even if they dissolve in Turkey as the PKK, they remain viable, armed, and dangerous in Syria, right over the border, where they have a history of launching attacks from Syria into Turkey through its operational branch, the YPG in Syria. The YPG, in fact, today it was discovered, killed as many as 88 civilians in a mass slaughter. So while we certainly hold out hope that the PKK has decided to become a non-violent entity, on the very day that we see them destroying light weapons in Turkey, we see them mass murdering civilians in Syria.
Now let's stick with Syria for the moment. How would you evaluate that reintegration process of northeastern Syria into the rest of the country?
No, there is no reintegration. There was a deal, and then the SDF, controlled by the YPG terrorist group, which again is the PKK in Syria, has violated and breached that agreement and failed to live up to its obligations. And in fact, yesterday, the U.S. Special Envoy, Tom Barak, essentially gave the YPG an ultimatum. They said there will be no ethnocentric separatist state in Syria. There will be no Kurdistan in Syria. They're not a majority. And in this modern era, Tom Barak has taken this position that these types of ethnocentric states should not even exist. The fact that they continue to insist on integration within the Syrian army as a separate, armed, and dangerous entity sets Syria up for a similar situation like Lebanon, where Hezbollah continues as an armed militia threatening the state. Syria cannot survive with an armed militia threatening the authority of the state as Hezbollah has in Lebanon. So for the PKK to be fully defeated, we need to see a disarmament and a dissolution of the YPG in Syria to its fullest.
So we see President Ahmed al-Sharaa is on a visit to Baku. That has to be significant, doesn't it?
I think that is a very significant development because it demonstrates that the new security paradigm in the Middle East and the Turkic world is emerging. So we see that Azerbaijan, with its friendly relations with Israel, is engaging in friendly relations with Syria. So what we're seeing is a recognition that there is a commonality of interest and a security paradigm emerging, but not just a security paradigm, also an energy relationship, a trade relationship, infrastructure, transportation. All of these things will make Azerbaijan, Turkey, Syria, and likely Saudi Arabia the common thread to a new arrangement in the Middle East where people can have opportunity and job growth. We see that Syria is destroyed. We know that Karabakh was destroyed. There's lots of jobs being created, lots of opportunity being created, lots of business creation. So what we're going to see is a boom, both in Azerbaijan, in Syria, of growth, of opportunity, of the lifestyles, the quality of life of families in both of these countries.
Thank you very much for your insights and for joining us on the programme.
God bless you. Thank you.
Now, the United Arab Emirates has become Turkey's fastest growing export market by value in the first half of 2025, a surge experts credit to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement signed back in 2023.
The United Arab Emirates became Turkey's top destination for export growth in value terms during the first half of 2025. According to data from the Turkish Exporters Assembly, exports to the UAE rose from $2 billion in the first half of 2024 to $3.3 billion in the same period this year, a 64.5% increase. Turkey's overall exports between January and June grew 4.1% year over year, reaching $131.4 billion. Exports in June alone rose 8% to $20.5 billion. In terms of Turkey's overall exports, the automotive sector led the way with $20 billion in exports, followed by chemicals at $15.8 billion and electronics at $8.3 billion. Despite the UAE's sharp growth, Germany remained Turkey's top export partner with $9.7 billion, followed by the UK with $6.56 billion, Italy with $6.35 billion, and the United States with $6.3 billion. Experts attribute the rise in export value to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement that took effect in 2023, which lowered customs duties and removed technical barriers, easing trade. The UAE's strategic location and logistics capacity have also benefited Turkish exporters.
Amid growing regional engagement, Afghanistan is strengthening its economic partnerships. A major development unfolded in Kabul, where senior officials from Afghanistan and Kazakhstan signed a landmark investment deal. Our Afghanistan correspondent Tamim Bahis has more details from Kabul.
At the presidential palace in Kabul, Mullah Abdul Ghani Brother, the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, welcomed Kazakhstan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Murad Notleo for high-level talks aimed at deepening economic cooperation between the two countries. The centerpiece of the discussions was a new investment agreement worth $500 million for the construction of the Herat-Turbundi railway line. Both leaders signed the deal, marking a significant step in regional connectivity. Brother emphasized Afghanistan's potential as a key transit corridor for Kazakh energy exports to South Asia. He called for stronger ties in trade, railways, and banking, areas where both sides expressed readiness to collaborate. According to the Afghan side, Kazakhstan also expressed interest in importing electricity, facilitating agricultural exports, and allowing Afghan banks to open account in Kazakh institutions. Separately, Kazakhstan's foreign minister also met with the acting foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. The two discussed the broader scope of bilateral ties, including political cooperation, regional transit projects, and academic exchanges. Both meetings underscored growing momentum in Afghanistan's regional diplomacy, with tangible outcomes like the Herat-Turbundi railway project now in motion. As cooperation expands, Afghanistan positions itself as a strategic economic bridge in the heart of Asia. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for AnewZ.
Now, a group of global explorers from the Most Travelled People Club is on a rare journey through Azerbaijan's liberated regions. From Kalbajar to Lachin, they're witnessing the pace of post-conflict recovery and sharing that story with the world.
We are now in Kalbajar, a breathtaking region nestled deep in the mountains of eastern Zangezur. Today marks a special moment in a truly unique journey. This visit is a part of an expedition organized by the world's famous MTP, the Most Traveled People Club. The group includes 30 travelers from 15 countries.
Their goal is to explore places that are often off the radar and to understand the stories that maps don't tell. Over the past 3 years, MTP members have visited Karabakh and eastern Zangezur more than a dozen times. The group toured Kalbajar's newly restored city centre, where they saw freshly paved roads, modern government offices and brand new residential buildings.
But what's really heartening to see now is all the rebuilding and the fantastic speed and quality of the rebuilding. We've been, I think, to 3 new towns now and seeing the rapidness of all the new housing that's come up, new retail and public facilities. And
one of the most exciting developments is the revival of Istisu, a once famous Soviet-era spa resort, now being rebuilt as a major wellness destination with modern infrastructure.
It's a beautiful part of the world. I mean, it's spectacular. It's been amazing seeing all the different towns, the rebuilding of all the different cities and how developed they've gotten so quickly. And then the mountains are out of this world, like absolutely stunning. And it's a part of the world I didn't know much about before this trip, and somewhere that I think everyone should visit.
Well, I mean, even to just get the materials to this location, I imagine is difficult. So it's really quite impressive, and even seeing them building the roads there, it's amazing. And I think about things being repaired back home, and it takes years for them to fix a pothole, and they're building roads over here.
After Kalbajar, the expedition continued southwest, toward another vital corner of eastern Zangezur, Lachin. Known for its strategic location and mountainous beauty, Lachin has also become a showcase of Azerbaijan's latest reconstruction achievements.
The group just arrived in Lachin to see some of the most recent reconstruction efforts, including new residential areas, public buildings, modern roads and utility infrastructure. One of the highlights was the visit to Lachin Panoramic Viewpoint, or Lachin Seyrangahı, a newly developed space that offers breathtaking views and symbolizing a fresh chapter for the region.
I think sixth time that I visited, and just more and more rebuilding and construction. For example, the road to Kalbajar today was really beautiful, and a couple of years ago it was just dirt road. And the new resort is at Itsusu. They're building a whole new resort above the hot springs, so that was pretty cool to see. This last year and this year are the first times we can just stop, relax in Lachin, have a nice view out of the countryside, and so this is real progress. I think that 5 years ago I would never have expected that so much could be done.
For most of them, this is their first time visiting Azerbaijan's liberated regions, and although many have explored other post-conflict zones globally, they say the pace and scope of reconstruction in Lachin is remarkable.
I've been impressed, like how many constructions are going on and how much the country is developing, and I've been quite surprised about all of what I've seen until now.
It's a good idea to visit, not only just to see the country itself, but see what happened in the past, and just to get an idea what is happening now, and something that to look forward to, the future of this country.
As the journey comes to an end, one thing is clear: this is more than a travel itinerary, and soon their impressions, captured through photos, videos and stories, will reach audiences across the world, offering a glimpse beyond borders and assumptions. For many, this journey is more than travel. It's a rare opportunity to witness how a region rebuilds and how Azerbaijan shares that story with the world.
Well, that's all we have for now from Baku. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates and enjoy the rest of your weekend.